All right, today I'm starting with my chicken wire moss poles. I cut them about 15 cubes and 20 cubes, depending on how big you want the circle. I tend to do 15. Sometimes I do 20 if I have bigger plant cuttings to attach to the moss pole. Today I'm going to be attaching the Monstera Deliciosa to the moss pole. You'll notice I have the sphagnum moss and I've been filling the moss pole. The sphagnum moss has been dampened. I've squeezed the water into it and loosened it up. And so I'm loosely just putting it in there. You want to allow it loosely inside of the moss pole in order for the roots to take into the moss pole. You'll notice at the end of the moss pole, about a fourth down, I have not put any sphagnum moss there because we're actually going to place aeroid dirt there to encourage root growth into the moss pole. So here's my first moss pole from my sphagnum moss that I have here in the pan. I was actually able to make a total of 6 moss poles. And so you'll see that. Once I have the sphagnum moss in there, I've gotten the zip ties and I use zip ties to tie them up. So here we are. So far we have our moss poles, and now let's take a look at our clippings of the Monstera. I had the Monstera clippings sitting in water for about a month now. Look at those beautiful roots. So you'll notice that most of them have taken root. And so I am going to be attaching them to the moss pole today. Some of my leaves, actually 2 of my leaves are yellow, but they still have amazing roots. So I'm still going to attach them to the moss poles. Also using the clear bowls here, or the clear planters, in order to see the root system as it grows. And I have some little cute fun white planters there. So here we go, Monstera. Let's go ahead and attach you to my sphagnum moss poles. So here we are with all of my supplies and my cute little planters. I love those planters. You'll notice I've also added the seed starting potting mix to help things root quicker to my aeroid mix. And my aeroid mix is a mixture of cocoa chips, Monstera soil, charcoal, and I've also added some perlite in there. So I have a really good soil to work with. You want to make sure your soil is loose and has room for a lot of drainage, because you don't want water just sitting in the soil. You want the water to actually flow completely through, water those roots just enough. So here I'm filling the end of the moss pole with dirt. Oh, and it's a little hard. I'm holding my camera, so forgive the visual here, but you get the drift. I am picking up dirt and I am stuffing it in the bottom of the moss pole. Love to play with dirt. Don't talk about me. Ever since I was a little girl, it's always been something about putting my hands in dirt. And so I guess I've always kind of had this green thumb. But here we are. We have a complete moss pole with the sphagnum moss and the aeroid dirt mix. So I am actually going to take my plant clippings and I'm going to attach it to the bottom of the moss pole. And I'm going to turn those roots to where those roots are encouraged to grow into the moss pole soil. I've added it into my plastic jar and I filled it up with dirt. Once I filled it up with dirt, it is time to actually tie the Monstera plant clippings to the moss pole to again just encourage growth up the moss pole. So you'll notice I took my green ties and I tied it, and look, I have some new growth there. I have a new leaf getting ready to sprout already, so I've left that out to just sprout freely. I have the roots protected inside of the plastic container and covered with dirt, but mostly concentrating on the moss pole. So here we are. We're going to moss pole number 2, and I'll do the same thing. I've added the dirt at the bottom. I've added my clippings inside. You'll notice the roots is pointing towards the moss pole, and look how beautiful that is. So now we're going to go ahead and tie that. After we finish tying all of the plant clippings to the moss pole, we are ready. And here is my final product. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 new Monstera Deliciosa plants on the moss pole, ready for growing. And you'll notice that one with the yellow leaf It still looks gorgeous on the plant. I'm not worried about it because it has a beautiful root system. I'll eventually pull that yellow leaf off once it turns a little more brown. But I like to let my leaves dry all the way